Hello, welcome to Live at Epiphan. This is episode 2. I'm George Herbert.
I'm George Birchall, the other George, as we're known around here.
And welcome.
So we've got a nice show for you planned today. We're going to talk about the cameras that we use here in our studio, the cameras we use for our trade shows, the cameras we use for our marketing, all over the place. We have a lot of different applications. We made a few changes to our studio since last week. The lighting is a little different, so we were a little bit dark last week, so we tried to improve that. Every week, I think we're going to try and do different things.
Little incremental changes to try and upgrade our studio and make sure we bring those, and hopefully you'll see the difference.
Yeah, the sound should be a little better this week too. And next week, I think, new camera.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll look at our first technical segment. Last week we talked about HDMI audio over DVI. And sometimes that relates to cameras, so it's a good one for this week's technical topic.
Yeah. So we have a bunch of cameras here laid out in front of us, different shapes and sizes. We're going to start with the smallest one. This is the one we most often use for trade shows. This is a GoPro. This is the latest model. It's the
Hero 5.
Hero 5. And the reason we use it is because it does 4K output. And when we go to trade shows, we need to demonstrate Pearl 2 with its 4K capabilities. So we need a small camera that we can mount somewhere up high in the booth, glue it to a wall somewhere. See, I'm right out of frame. And so this is kind of the perfect camera for that. It also has nice clean HDMI output with a good signal, and it's pretty affordable as well. So
I guess here in the studio we have a couple of different cameras that we commonly use. Our main camera is one of these Canon G20s, pretty standard, basic, off-the-shelf, full HD, 1080p at 30 FPS, clean HDMI, decent audio out of it. We primarily use this in our studio as the main camera because we do have the ability to have some manual control over exposure and things like that, which is not common in a lot of the entry-level camcorder style things. So it is a little bit more expensive than sort of the $200 one off the shelf at Best Buy, but it gives us some manual control, which when you're dealing with specialized lighting, things like that can be very important.
It's also really easy to use too, so that because we have a lot of different people coming in the studio, so we need to make sure it's fairly bulletproof.
Another one we use is this old Sony. This is more of a backup camera. We also use it as a side camera for close-up shots and things like that. Nowhere near the manual control of the Canon. The optics are not nearly as sharp. The color reproduction is not nearly as good. So it's fine if we're doing like a product close-up for a simple demonstration, but not something you would want to necessarily use for a main studio camera.
Sure.
Might be okay to film your kids or on vacation or something, but it's not going to serve as a studio camera in a realistic way. One thing that both of these have, though, is obviously the flip-out screens, which you can flip around. That's an important thing to look at when considering a studio camera, so that if the person is doing everything by themselves, they can get that confidence monitor built in by having it forward-facing.
It's crucial.
So that can be a very handy feature for studio.
So the two other cameras we have up here, we use a lot for our marketing purposes. This is a Sony A6300. It's a APS-C size sensor, so it's got a nice big sensor, so you're going to get a nice, great quality image out of it. And you, of course, interchangeable lenses, so you can shoot pretty much whatever you want with it and know that you're going to get a great image. It has shortcomings, though, and those shortcomings are that it doesn't have a screen that flips out for confidence monitoring. So for a studio application, it's not ideal. It also it doesn't like to be run continuously, as we've learned the hard way a few times, in that it overheats a little bit and it'll turn off. Like most SLRs, they're happy when they're running for 20 minutes, they're happy maybe for an hour, but after that it gets a little dicey. So if you need to make sure that you've got an hour of continuous footage, an SLR can be problematic. Not all of them, there are some that I think are going to do a great job of that, but
yeah, it's definitely, if it's not strictly built for video, sometimes there are these weird little pieces that you accidentally discover.
Yeah, but I do love the camera. It takes amazing. Oh well, we bought it also for photography as well because we need to shoot our products to get them up on the web. So the other camera we have that we use for marketing is this, which is our Canon C100. It is a It's pretty much an SLR disguised as a cinema camera, in that you've taken the guts of an SLR. The way it processes images is pretty much the same way, but you have form factors. So if you want to do any real handheld work with a camera, you don't want to be trying to hold an SLR because it's not going to give you a nice steady shot. With a camera like this, you really can do handheld work. Another big reason we got this camera is that it has built-in audio input, so I can accept XLR audio, so I don't need a separate piece of gear to make my audio. So I can be shooting with this. I can have like no time to set up, grab this camera, shoot, get a professional production, and be editing in the afternoon, and it's very easy. So
with interchangeable lenses means you get a lot of options there as
well.
Yeah,
you can shoot whatever you want, and it performs incredibly well in low light.
Yeah.
So we shoot a lot of the time at the backs of big dark rooms and in dark places with dark equipment. So if you don't have a camera that's good with low light, you're not going to get a very good picture. So
and the audio is important too, right? I mean, you take something like this, the built-in microphones on these are
you really
not very
it's
good.
Not usable.
And the auxiliary mic in is just a 3.5 mil headphone jack, right? So you're not getting professional audio through a camera like this, where with that you hook up basically anything to the XLR from a professional audio perspective. So that's a big thing. I guess another one we use quite a bit internally is our own Lumio 12X, which is a pretty standard PTZ camera for the most part. Good optics, nice 12X optical zoom, things like that. PTZ obviously has the ability to remotely control its positioning, so you can kind of put it out of the way.
Sure.
Another big advantage of many PTZ cameras, of course, is that they usually have different outputs, like SDI, which this one has. All these other cameras are generally just HDMI.
Yes.
It's not that there's anything wrong with HDMI, but SDI gives you the big advantage of longer cable runs. Just due to the technology involved, you can run SDI for hundreds of meters and it's fine. HDMI is not going to do that. So you need to look at those if it's something where you can mount it on a ceiling or in the back of a room and things like that, then using that type of a camera with SDI out is a big piece. Downsides are no audio built into it, no way to feed audio through it. Some PTZ cameras offer that, but very few. Most are usually just image. So mixing that with something else, or if you're taking that into an encoder or production box like our Pearl 2, then you could bring in XLR audio.
Well, really, the same is true for any camera. In a big room, you're never going to have a camera with built-in audio that's going to be effective in any way. So you're always going to have, for the most part, dedicated audio and dedicated video.
Yeah,
so we use these in our meeting rooms and a few other places around here, and they've been great. So.
If you guys have any questions about cameras, definitely put them in chat. Let us know. Happy to answer those, or send us an email live@epiphan.com. We can take a look at that. I actually did get one question, and one of them was, let me just find it here. Which GoPro models support HDMI out? To our knowledge, basically every model after the Hero 3, which was a couple of years ago now, have supported clean HDMI output.
Yeah, I have a 3, and I think it's a dirty HDMI output.
So we've
which
used
means it has all the display information on it, so it's
we've
unusable.
used 3, 4s, and now 5s for various purposes, and the 5, as we talked about, is great because it now does 4K out, so we can pair it up with some of our 4K capable devices like the AVIO 4K and Pearl 2.
And is this the first one with the screen on it too?
You could get like a backpack mount for the other ones, and they had other ones, the mid model that had no 4K in the Hero 4 but had the screen. So they've kind of amalgamated into more. Really, there's only one to buy now.
It's pretty annoying not having a screen to operate a camera.
So it's the Hero 5 is a big step up. Like, I mean, GoPro's obviously been around forever. Everyone knows them now. But the Hero 5's honestly a huge step up in their products, and that's one of the reasons we bought so many for, like you said, for the trade show usage.
Lousy with them.
So let me just double check and see if there were any other questions. Okay. Definitely for future shows, if there are any questions as we're going through a technical topic like this, like I say, submit them in chat or send us an email, and we would be happy to address those.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to some other things that caught our attention this week. One of the things is that the International Space Station was streaming live This is not new exactly, but they had a new broadcast, and we're always interested when we hear that story for a couple of reasons. One, because just the concept of streaming from outer space raises a lot of questions. How do they do that? George is going to look into that a little bit this week, and he's going to help us figure that out.
Yeah, and of course we look at that. We'll talk a little bit about another story involving the ISS afterwards, why we pay attention to it so much. Mm-hmm. But it is really interesting, and of course we've managed to time this show perfectly so that the ISS is on the dark side of the planet and the stream is showing absolutely nothing. The cool part is...
So wait, that is their live stream?
That is their live stream right now. The nice part is that when you view it on NASA's website, they also have it up on like Facebook Live, but when you view it on NASA's website, they actually give you this tracker to show you where the ISS is, and as you can see, it's kind of going over China right now where it's dark. So,
the Santa tracker. Okay.
Yeah. The interesting part is this is officially part of an experiment on the ISS. They've mounted 4 cameras around the ISS to get these pictures, and they've done us the favor of deciding to live stream it, even though they don't have to as part of their experiment. The interesting part, like you said, how do you even live stream from outer space? They use a number of different connections for all the communications in the ISS. The data communication for internet access, and they have a lot of funny security barriers to secure and make sure nobody can accidentally hack or send viruses to the laptops they have on the station for obvious reasons. But with the live stream, they're using a big chunk of that data connection, which from my research showed that, I guess 2015 they upgraded to using a new transmission type. They use satellite internet, which I don't know if anyone is familiar with using it. Latency is usually terrible on satellite internet. Speed theoretically is not bad. Currently, they have about, again, theoretically, on a nice sunny day, about a 300 meg download speed and 50 meg up. So they would be using that upload speed as part of the live stream and everything else they do in the back end. So it's a lot of data, and it's inconsistent because it has to go from the ISS, which is at one orbit, to the satellites, which is in a higher orbit, and then back down to Earth. So this movement is...
So what kind of latency are we talking?
That's a good question. We'll never know because when we see it, we don't really know.
It's a week.
I doubt it's a week, but it could be, and we probably wouldn't know.
Sure.
But it's interesting that they're able to do that now and do that consistently. There are sometimes interruptions. Whatever switching they're using on the ISS between cameras sometimes brings the stream down for a minute or two while they switch cameras.
Right.
So don't know exactly what they're using for that, but I suspect they could probably use a Pearl to help out with some of that.
Yeah, that should be good.
Which would be cool, and it certainly would not be Epiphan's first time on the ISS either. So a while back, we did a press release talking about one of the products we currently have on the ISS, which is our KVM to USB.
Yes.
It's involved as part of the European Space Agency program doing an experiment in their lab module that's on the ISS. They're doing it as part of these interesting experiments with all kinds of weird stuff that honestly is a little over my head, although it's really cool. Our press release is on our website, and you can check that out. We'll put the link in the description afterwards. But basically, they use it to capture video from a camera that's watching a particle cloud. Because of the delay that we just talked about with live streaming...
Would you like me to explain what particle cloud is?
If you can, I would love that.
We'll save it for another episode.
Okay. Because of the latency we talked about with live streaming, the actual scientists on the ground that are studying the particle cloud can't manipulate it fast enough due to that latency. So they link up with the astronauts on the ISS who will do the manipulation, and they can see everything in real time. So they're using our device to capture the video from this camera staring at a particle cloud, and they sometimes use the keyboard and mouse functions of that particular device to do maintenance and troubleshooting on other systems on the station, but also to interact with the experiment. So,
and they are nice enough to give us updates about every couple of months about what new stuff that they're doing with this product.
Exactly. So like I said, that press release is on our website. It's a very cool experiment, and even that's not the first time that Epiphan products have been involved with NASA, and we love working with them. They're always interesting stories, so definitely check that out. I guess another piece of news in general streaming topics this week, and I noticed we put this on our list the other day, and it's been popping up all over my feeds in the past day as well. Microsoft released a new update for the Xbox. One of the key features in this update is built-in streaming using the Beam.Pro service. Beam is essentially a competitor to Twitch, so it's very gaming oriented for content creators to live stream gameplay and those sorts of things. The cool part, now that Microsoft is integrating this with the Xbox, and what Beam has always tried to do, is create a method of doing the live streaming to make it more content producer friendly with very, very low latency.
This is the cool part.
Yeah, and to add in other interaction types. So not just throwing a stream out there with maybe a minute of latency like Twitch or YouTube might offer, but to minimize that, and if you use their specialized tools, they use as a transport they call FTL, which they do mean to faster than light. You can get the latency down sometimes
that
under.
modest name.
Yeah, they can get it under a second, which when you're talking about live streaming is incredibly fast. That interaction between viewers and the content creators at that speed means that they can also start adding in some of the other things. So there's certain integrations with Beam where viewers can actually control some of what the content creator is doing in a game.
This is really interesting, yeah.
Which is cool. That's a new way of, I guess, group participation in this. But they also have a few different pieces that incentivize people to not use ad blocks, which then obviously increases the potential revenue for content creators. And that's always a battle with YouTube or Twitch or any of those services is people creating this content, if they're trying to do this to make a living and people are using ad block, they're not getting any ad revenue from those viewers. So the way that Beam does it is for every minute or however often that you're viewing streams without ad block software, you earn essentially tokens. They call them shards, I think. And then you can use those as essentially a service currency.
Have you tried this yet?
A little bit, yeah. I actually used our Pearl 2 to stream to Beam, and it worked great. Ran it for about 10, 15 minutes, and it looked great, ran great. No one viewed it other than me.
And do you have, are people using it? Like, is there a huge...
Yeah, the community is growing. It's definitely not as big as Twitch, and I don't know if it ever will be. I mean, maybe this new Xbox integration will change that.
Well, Twitch has got a lot of company right now. Facebook is launching some stuff to try to target Twitch, so they seem to be...
so Twitch finally has some real competition, and hopefully that's going to cause them to innovate as well, because competition hopefully causes everyone to innovate, and that's good.
Yes.
So Beam's interesting. I definitely would say check it out. The TechCrunch article has a lot of details, and obviously you can check it out on their website as well. They also integrate with standard encoding software like OBS. Using an AVIO, one of our products, with OBS to use to Beam or Pearl or whatever.
Yeah, we should do like a how-to or a,
it would be an
video
interesting
demo sometimes soon.
And they have APIs and SDKs that integrate with different things, and I don't know that we would ever do that, but it would be interesting. Yeah. It's a unique take for sure.
So next week, send us your suggestions. We want to hear what you think, and if you have good ideas, we're going to talk about it. So live@epiphan.com is our email address. You can also make comments on the Facebook thread or the YouTube thread. Next week, we're going to have Mathieu Renaud. He was in here last week. He is a sound engineer. He's our sound guy. And he's going to talk about what we did in the studio to make it awesome for sound. So we had troubles in here, and sound was bouncing in places that was not good.
Sounded like a tin can.
And he fixed a lot of that for us. So next week, you're going to see him in here.
And going forward, as we work more on sound, we mentioned it last week, some of the equipment we have in here is very loud. You might hear it right now. Our DVI switcher, although a decent piece of hardware, is very loud. So hopefully going forward, we're going to find ways to eliminate that or silence it. So definitely subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow on Twitter, all the usual things. If you like what you saw, hit the like button, submit the suggestions, live@epiphan.com. And we will see you next week, Thursday, 3 o'clock Eastern.
Okay. Thank you.